They're breaking into the car now.
Oh God, we have to go. They're gonna find us.
The camera pans across an opulent London mansion at dawn. Inside, a young woman named Elena clutches a newborn baby, her hands trembling. Behind her, security footage flickers on multiple screens, showing a figure tampering with a luxury car in a garage. An elderly man in a wheelchair watches the footage, his face hardening with recognition. He picks up his phone. Marcus Thornton. Weakly, arrest her. My own daughter tried to kill me. Police sirens wail in the distance. Elena looks down at the baby in her arms, then back at the mansion's grand entrance. Elena whispered, "We're finally safe, little one. Finally home." Cut to a woman's silhouette in a darkened penthouse across the city. She hurls a crystal glass against the wall. Catherine Thornton. This isn't over. Not even close. Title card. Virgin Maid fulfills billionaire's dying wish. If you want to enjoy this story, watch the full video and wait for next party. Share the video to 20,000 people, comment, and let me know where you're watching from. Welcome to African Tales by Natasha. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends, and most important thing, turn your notification bell so you can get informed when I dropped another amazing story. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. What would you do if your spouse tried to kill you and you survive? Will you take a revenge or disappear forever? The moment Catherine Thornton discovered that Elena had escaped to another country, something inside her fractured beyond repair. It wasn't just anger coursing through her veins anymore. It was obsession. A bitter, consuming need to find that housekeeper and drag her back into the nightmare she'd crawled out of. Catherine made calls. Dangerous calls. To men who didn't ask questions. Men who only cared about the wire transfers hitting their accounts and the assignments they were hired to complete. Within 48 hours, she dispatched a team to Canada. That's where Marcus Thornton had hidden Elena, or at least, that's what Catherine believed. Find her, Catherine instructed over an encrypted line, her voice cold and sharp as shattered glass. I don't care how long it takes. Search every city, every medical facility, every corner. Just find that woman. The operatives searched for weeks, then months. They combed through Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. They checked immigration records, hospital registries, and rental agreements. They bribed officials, questioned locals, and followed leads that went nowhere. But Elena had vanished like smoke. Marcus Thornton had been too careful. He hadn't sent her to Canada at all. That was just misinformation he deliberately leaked in a conversation he knew Catherine was monitoring. The real destination? Only he and his most trusted associates knew, and they weren't talking. After 3 months of burning through cash and coming up empty, Catherine finally abandoned the active search. But she didn't abandon the war. If she couldn't find Elena, then she'd make sure Marcus suffered every single day until he revealed where that woman was hiding. Catherine became a shadow in the Thornton estate. Everywhere Marcus turned, she was there. Watching, listening, analyzing every word he spoke, every phone call he made, every moment he thought he was alone. She monitored his conversations with the staff, checked his phone whenever he fell asleep, even went through his discarded papers looking for clues. But for 9 long months, Marcus left no traces. He was a businessman who'd survived corporate betrayals, ruthless competitors, and enemies far more dangerous than his own wife. He knew how to keep secrets. He knew how to play the long game. And he knew that one mistake could cost Elena and his unborn son everything. So he stayed silent. Even when the pain in his body intensified. Even when he could barely lift his head from the pillow. Even when death started knocking louder at his door. While Marcus held his ground, someone else in that house was falling apart. Sophie, the youngest daughter, the forgotten one, the girl everyone pitied but nobody truly cared for. When Elena left, Sophie's world collapsed. Elena had been the only person in that mansion who'd treated her like a human being. The only one who'd sat with her during the worst days, who'd cleaned her up when she got sick, who'd whispered kind words when the illness made her scream in pain. The other staff did their jobs, yes, but with cold efficiency and distant eyes. They were just following orders. Elena had actually cared. And now she was gone. Sophie's condition deteriorated rapidly. The illness spread faster. The treatments stopped working. Her body grew weaker by the day. She stopped eating, stopped talking, just lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, waiting for death to finally claim her. Marcus knew this was coming. He'd seen it months ago when the doctors gave Sophie limited time. But knowing it didn't make it any easier, watching his youngest daughter waste away, knowing he couldn't save her, knowing that if Elena had stayed, she might have had a few more months of comfort. It tore him apart inside. 3 weeks before Elena gave birth, Sophie died. It happened quietly in the pre-dawn hours. No dramatic final words, no tearful goodbyes, just a soft exhale in the middle of the night, and then silence. One of the housekeepers found her the next morning, already cold. Marcus wept. Not loudly, not in front of anyone, but alone in his room. He let the tears fall for his daughter, for the life she never got to live, for all the ways he'd failed her. He wanted to call Elena, wanted to tell her what had happened, but he couldn't risk it. Any contact could lead Catherine straight to her. So he swallowed his grief and stayed silent. Catherine, on the other hand, didn't shed a single tear. She stood at Sophie's funeral wearing black, her face calm and composed, playing the role of the heartbroken mother perfectly. But inside, she felt nothing. Sophie had always been a burden, a reminder of weakness, a child who couldn't contribute to the family's image or wealth. And now she was gone. One less problem to deal with. At least we don't have to waste money on treatments anymore, Catherine muttered to Amelia later that evening, her voice flat and businesslike. Amelia nodded. She didn't care either. None of them did. Olivia, Emma, and Charlotte, they all showed up to the funeral, said the right words, posted the right photos on social media, then went back to their lives like nothing had happened. Because to them, Sophie's death wasn't the tragedy. The real problem was still out there, growing bigger every day inside Elena's belly. When Olivia told Kenneth about Sophie's death, he barely acknowledged it. All he cared about was the inheritance. So what now? Kenneth asked over the phone, his voice impatient. When is the old man going to die? We've been waiting forever. I don't know, Olivia snapped. He's still alive, still breathing, still protecting that woman. Then maybe it's time you stop waiting, Kenneth said slowly, his tone dark and deliberate. Maybe it's time you do something about it. Olivia froze. What are you saying? I'm saying that if your father dies before he changes his will, everything goes to you and your sisters, right? But if he lives long enough for Elena to come back with that baby, you lose everything. So the question is, what are you willing to do to protect your future? Olivia felt her heart pound. She knew what Kenneth was suggesting. And part of her, the part that was tired of waiting, tired of watching her father protect a housekeeper over his own daughters, actually considered it. I'll think about it, she whispered before hanging up. Meanwhile, Emma was having the time of her life. While her sister lay dead and her father suffered in silence, Emma saw nothing but opportunity. The Thornton family drama was trending everywhere. Blogs, podcasts, Instagram, TikTok. Everyone wanted to know what was happening behind those mansion gates. And Emma was more than happy to tell them. Or rather, to tell them her version. She started doing interviews, first with small bloggers, then bigger media outlets, then national television. She sat there in designer clothes, tears streaming down her face on cue, and painted Elena as a villain sent to destroy their family. She came into our home as a housekeeper, Emma said on camera, her voice trembling for effect. We trusted her. We treated her like family. And then she seduced my father, a dying man. She got pregnant on purpose, hoping to steal everything we've worked for. The viewers ate it up. The comment sections exploded with support for Emma, with people calling Elena every horrible name imaginable. Emma's follower count skyrocketed. Brands started reaching out for sponsorships. She was turning her family's pain into profit, and she didn't feel an ounce of shame. Amelia and Catherine, on the other hand, had only one focus: finding Elena. They weren't interested in interviews or social media drama. They wanted results. They spent hours locked in Catherine's suite, going over every detail, every clue, every possible lead. They checked flight records, called contacts in immigration offices, even hired private investigators. But it was like chasing a ghost. Elena had disappeared completely, and with every passing day, Catherine's frustration grew. Because she knew time was running out. The baby would be born soon, and once that happened, everything would change. 9 months passed like a slow, painful dream. And then one quiet morning in a hospital far from England, Elena gave birth to a baby boy. The delivery was smooth. The baby came out crying, his lungs strong, his skin perfect. When the nurse placed him in Elena's arms, she looked down at his tiny face and felt something break open inside her chest. Relief, joy, fear, all of it rushing through her at once. "He's beautiful," the nurse said with a warm smile. Elena couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face as she held her son close. This child, this precious, innocent child, he was the reason she'd run. The reason she'd endured 9 months of loneliness and fear. The reason she was still alive. But she couldn't tell Marcus directly. That was too dangerous. Catherine was watching everything. One wrong move, one traced call, and it would all be over. So Elena did what they'd agreed on. She went to the security specialist Marcus had hired to protect her. A quiet, reliable man who never asked questions and never made mistakes. She handed him a folded piece of paper with just 4 words written on it. "It's a boy." The guard nodded, tucked the paper into his pocket, and left. That night, at exactly 2 a.m, when the mansion in London was silent and dark, the guard sent a text message to Marcus. Just 3 words. The boy arrived. Marcus was awake when the message came through. He hadn't been sleeping well for weeks. The pain in his body was getting worse, and every night felt like it could be his last. But when he saw those words on his phone screen, something inside him sparked back to life. He smiled. A real, genuine smile, the kind he hadn't worn in years. His son was here. His legacy was alive. He texted back immediately. "Tell her to name him Samuel Thornton Jr. Tell her I'm proud." That night, Marcus slept better than he had in months. For the first time in a long time, he felt like maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. But while Marcus rested, Elena was restless. She hadn't spoken to her mother in 9 months. 9 long, agonizing months of silence. She knew her family must have been worried sick. They probably thought she was dead. Or worse, they might have believed whatever lies Catherine had told them. Elena needed to hear her mother's voice. She needed to tell her that she was alive, that she had a grandson, that everything was going to be fine. So she went to the guard and begged him. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "Just 5 minutes. I need to speak to my mother, just to let her know I'm okay." The guard hesitated. He had strict orders. No contact, no calls, no risks. But when he looked at Elena's face, at the desperation in her eyes, he couldn't say no. 5 minutes, he said firmly. Not a second more. Elena nodded quickly, her heart pounding with relief. What she didn't know was that Catherine and Amelia had already visited her mother's home weeks ago. They'd shown up unannounced, wearing expensive clothes and fake concern on their faces. "We're looking for Elena," Catherine had said, sitting in the small, cramped flat where Elena's family lived. "She stole from us. Money, jewelry, documents. She's wanted not just by us, but by the authorities internationally." Elena's mother had stared at them in shock, her hands trembling. "My daughter would never." "She did," Amelia interrupted sharply. "But we can help her. If she calls you, if she contacts you in any way, you need to tell us immediately. We have lawyers. We can get her out of this mess before it gets worse. But you have to cooperate." Elena's mother didn't believe them. Not fully. But she was scared. Scared for her daughter. Scared of these powerful, wealthy people sitting in her tiny home making threats disguised as offers. So when the phone rang that day and she heard Elena's voice on the other end, she didn't know what to do. "Mama, it's me," Elena said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I'm okay. I'm safe. I had a baby, a boy. You're a grandmother now." Elena's mother wanted to cry, wanted to scream with joy, but fear gripped her throat. "Where are you?" she asked urgently. "Where have you been? Those people came here. They said terrible things. Don't listen to them, Mama. They're lying. I can't tell you where I am, but I'm safe. The baby is safe. I just wanted you to know." "But where are you?" her mother pressed, her voice rising. "Just tell me the name of the place. I need to know you're okay." Elena hesitated. But it was her mother. Her own mother. How could she not trust her? "I'm in a hospital," Elena said quietly. "Trinity Health Medical Center. That's all I can say." "Trinity Health," her mother repeated, committing it to memory. Okay, my daughter. Stay safe. I love you. I love you too, Mama." The call ended. 5 minutes. That was all it took. And it was Elena's first mistake. Elena's mother sat there for a long time, staring at the phone in her hand. She was torn. Part of her wanted to keep the secret, to protect her daughter. But another part of her, the part that was scared and confused and manipulated by Catherine's lies, thought maybe, just maybe, telling them would help. So she called Catherine. "She contacted me," Elena's mother said nervously. "She said she's in a hospital. Trinity Health Medical Center. She had a baby." On the other end of the line, Catherine's eyes lit up like a predator spotting prey. "Thank you," Catherine said smoothly. "You did the right thing. We'll bring her home safely. I promise." The moment she hung up, Catherine turned to Amelia with a wicked grin. "We have her." Within hours, Catherine had mobilized her network again. This time she wasn't searching blindly. She had a name, Trinity Health Medical Center. There were dozens of hospitals with that name across Canada and the United States, but it didn't matter. She would check every single one. She sent people to scan hospital records, bribe security guards, question staff. It was only a matter of time now. Meanwhile, back in London, Emma was becoming a celebrity. The Thornton family drama was the hottest story in the country. Every blog, every podcast, every gossip page was talking about it. And Emma was at the center of it all, milking every ounce of attention. Her social media followers had tripled. Brands were begging to work with her. She was getting invited to events, parties, television shows. People stopped her on the street to take pictures. She was famous, and she loved every second of it. While Emma thrived in the spotlight, Olivia was drowning in darkness. Kenneth's words kept replaying in her mind like a broken record. "Maybe it's time you do something about it." She knew what he meant. And the more she thought about it, the more sense it made. Why should she wait for her father to die naturally when he was clearly planning to give everything to Elena's son? Why should she lose her inheritance because of some housekeeper? At first, the thought made her sick. Ending her own father's life. That was too far. That was evil. But then she remembered Kenneth's voice. She remembered the money, the life they could have together once her father was gone. She remembered how Marcus had chosen Elena over his own daughters. And slowly, the guilt faded, replaced by cold, hard determination. One morning, Olivia woke up early, before anyone else in the house. She went to the kitchen, made a pot of tea, and carefully, quietly, poured a small vial of poison into one of the cups. Her hands were steady. Her heart was calm. She had made her decision. She handed the poisoned tea to the elderly housekeeper who usually served Marcus in the morning. "Take this to my father," Olivia said casually. "Make sure he drinks all of it." The housekeeper nodded and took the tray, completely unaware of what she was carrying. But Charlotte saw her. Charlotte, who spent every day tormenting her father, who saw every opportunity to twist the knife a little deeper. She spotted the housekeeper walking toward Marcus's room with the tea, and an idea formed in her mind. Let me take that, Charlotte said, snatching the tray from the housekeeper's hands. I want to talk to him anyway. The housekeeper shrugged and walked away. Charlotte marched toward her father's room, a cruel smile on her face. She was planning her next insult, her next round of verbal torture. But as she walked, she felt thirsty. The tea smelled good, rich and sweet. She lifted the cup to her lips and took a sip. Just one small sip. And then she pushed the door open, ready to tell her father once again how much he'd ruined their lives. But the words never came. Her throat closed. Her chest tightened. The cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor, tea spilling everywhere. Charlotte's eyes went wide with shock and pain. She tried to speak, tried to scream, but nothing came out. And then she collapsed, right there in front of Marcus. Her body hit the floor with a sickening thud. Marcus stared in horror, unable to move, unable to process what he was seeing. His daughter, his Charlotte, lying motionless on the ground, her eyes frozen open, her lips turning blue. He tried to shout for help, but his voice was too weak. He tried to reach for his phone, but his hands wouldn't obey. All he could do was sit there in his wheelchair, tears streaming down his face, watching his daughter die in front of him. By the time the staff came running, it was too late. Charlotte was gone. The house erupted into chaos. Screaming, crying, confusion. Doctors were called, police were summoned, but nothing could bring Charlotte back. Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. When Olivia heard that Charlotte was dead, she wanted to lose her mind. Not because she loved her sister. Not because she mourned her. But because Charlotte wasn't supposed to be the one lying on that floor. It was supposed to be Marcus. The plan was perfect. The poison was meant for him. And somehow, stupidly, Charlotte had ruined everything. Olivia paced back and forth in her room, her hands shaking, her mind racing. 2 sisters gone within a month. Sophie, then Charlotte. And her father was still alive, still breathing, still planning to give everything away to that housekeeper's child. She grabbed her phone and called Kenneth, her voice barely a whisper. It went wrong. Charlotte drank it. Not him. Charlotte is dead. There was silence on the other end. Then Kenneth spoke, his voice low and urgent. You need to run. Get out of that house now. If your father finds out it was you. He won't find out, Olivia said quickly, though her voice trembled. He can't prove anything. Olivia, listen to me. Your father is smart. He'll investigate. He'll ask questions. And if he finds that housekeeper who was supposed to deliver the tea, if she talks, then what do I do? Olivia hissed. Run. Leave everything behind. He's dying anyway. If I run now, I lose everything. Kenneth was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then stay but be smart. Act devastated. Cry at the funeral. Blame someone else. Make sure you're the last person anyone suspects. Olivia swallowed hard. Okay, I can do that. And Olivia, don't try anything again. Not yet. Let things cool down first. She hung up and sat on the edge of her bed, staring at nothing. 2 daughters dead, and she was responsible for one of them. The guilt should have crushed her. But all she felt was anger. Anger at Charlotte for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Anger at her father for not dying when he was supposed to. Downstairs, Catherine was standing in the middle of the living room, staring at the spot where Charlotte had collapsed. Her face was blank, empty, like she was looking at something far away. People always said mothers had a special bond with their children, that losing a child was the worst pain a woman could ever feel. But Catherine felt nothing. Just numbness. And underneath that numbness, a cold, burning rage. She turned to one of the housekeepers and said, her voice flat and lifeless, "This is all because of her. That woman, Elena. She brought this curse into our family. First Sophie, now Charlotte. Who's next? Which one of my daughters will she take next?" The housekeeper said nothing, just kept her head down and backed away slowly. But Catherine wasn't done. She marched straight to Marcus's room, pushed the door open without knocking, and stood there glaring at him. "This is your fault," she said, her voice shaking with fury. "You brought that woman into this house. You slept with her. You made her pregnant. And now look what's happening. 2 of our daughters are dead. Dead. And for what? For some woman from the slums. For an illegitimate son who will never be legitimate." Marcus looked at her with hollow eyes. He was too tired to fight. Too broken to defend himself. "Leave," he said quietly. "I won't leave," Catherine spat. "You need to hear this. You destroyed this family. You destroyed our daughters. And when you die, I hope you rot in hell for what you've done." She slammed the door on her way out. Marcus sat there in his wheelchair, staring at the closed door. His body was failing him. His family hated him. 2 of his daughters were dead. And now he was starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, his newborn son was cursed. Maybe this was punishment for everything he'd done wrong in his life. He wanted to end it. Just roll his wheelchair to the balcony and let gravity do the rest. But something stopped him. A voice in his head. Or maybe it was his conscience. Or maybe it was just stubbornness. He picked up his phone and called his younger brother, Jonathan Thornton, a man he trusted, a man who'd always been honest with him, even when it hurt. "Jonathan," Marcus said, his voice barely holding together. "I need to talk to you." An hour later, Jonathan was sitting in his brother's room, listening to everything. The affair, the pregnancy, the escape, the deaths, all of it. When Marcus finished, Jonathan was quiet for a long time. Then he leaned forward and looked his brother in the eyes. "Don't blame yourself," Jonathan said firmly. "And don't blame Elena. Don't blame that child. What's happening in this house has nothing to do with them. This is your family, your wife, your daughters. They're the ones tearing this house apart, not some woman from the slums." "But 2 of my daughters are dead," Marcus said weakly. "And you think that's because of Elena?" Jonathan interrupted. "Brother, wake up. Someone tried to poison you. That tea was meant for you. Charlotte drank it by accident. Which means someone in this house wants you dead. And I guarantee you it's not Elena. She's thousands of miles away. So the question isn't why are your daughters dying. The question is, who is trying to end your life?" Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He hadn't thought about it like that. But now that Jonathan said it out loud, it made perfect sense. "What do I do?" Marcus asked. "Find out who did it," Jonathan said simply. "Before they try again." The next day, Marcus called for a family meeting. Catherine, Olivia, Emma, and Amelia all gathered in the living room, their faces carefully blank, their hearts racing. Marcus rolled his wheelchair to the center of the room and looked at each of them one by one. "Charlotte didn't end her own life," he said, his voice steady and cold. "The tea that ended her life was meant for me. I know this because the housekeeper who was supposed to bring me that tea disappeared. She ran away the moment Charlotte died, which means she knows something. And when I find her, I'll find out who did this." The room was silent. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall. "So I'm asking you now," Marcus continued. "If any of you knows anything, say it. If any of you tried to harm me, confess. Because when I find out the truth, and I will find out, there will be no forgiveness. No second chances. I don't care if you're my wife or my daughter. You will face the consequences." He let the words hang in the air for a moment. Then he turned his wheelchair around and rolled out of the room, leaving them all sitting there in stunned silence. Catherine didn't flinch. She just sat there, her face calm, her mind calculating. Another daughter lost. Another problem. But she wasn't scared. She was too far gone to be scared. All she cared about now was finding Elena and ending this once and for all. Amelia, on the other hand, was terrified. She'd always trusted her mother, always followed her lead. But now she was starting to wonder if her mother was capable of something truly terrible. Emma was watching too. She knew what her sisters were capable of. She knew Olivia was desperate. She knew Amelia was loyal to their mother. And she knew that in a house like this, anyone could be next. That evening, Emma went live on Instagram. Thousands of people tuned in, eager to hear the latest update from the Thornton family drama. "I know you all have been asking what happened to my sister Charlotte," Emma said, her voice trembling just enough to sound genuine. "And I want to tell you the truth. It was Elena. That woman cursed our family. Ever since my father brought her into this house, everything has fallen apart. First Sophie, now Charlotte. And I'm scared. I'm scared that I might be next. So please, I'm begging you all, wherever Elena is, send your prayers. Pray that karma finds her, because she's destroyed my family." The comments exploded. Thousands of people sent prayers, insults, and curses directed at Elena. Emma's follower count shot up again. She was trending again. And she smiled. Meanwhile, Marcus was back in his study with his assistant, a quiet man who'd worked for him for 15 years and never asked unnecessary questions. Together, they sat in front of the computer screen, reviewing security footage from every camera in the house. The problem was, the footage from the day Charlotte died was missing, completely erased, like it never existed. "Someone deleted it," the assistant said, frowning at the screen. "But who has access to this system?" Marcus asked. "Everyone in this house knows where the security room is. Anyone could have gone in there." "Then let's check the security footage of the security room itself," the assistant suggested. "If someone went in to delete the files, the camera in that room would have caught them." Marcus looked at him with a spark of hope. "Do it. Check everything." They scrolled through the footage. Hour after hour, day after day. And then they found it. November 13th, 2:47 a.m. Olivia Thornton, sneaking into the security room with a USB drive in her hand. She looked nervous, kept glancing over her shoulder like she expected someone to catch her. She plugged the USB into the computer, clicked around for a few minutes, then pulled it out and left. The next morning, Charlotte was dead. Marcus sat back in his wheelchair, his jaw tight, his hands trembling. Olivia. His first daughter. The one he'd sent to the best schools, given the best life, trusted the most. She'd tried to end his life. And when her plan failed, she'd ended her own sister instead. "Sir, what do you want to do?" the assistant asked carefully. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. "Keep watching. I need more proof. I need to know for sure." But in his heart, he already knew. Meanwhile, Olivia was constructing a new plan. Kenneth had told her to wait, but she couldn't wait anymore. Her father was getting suspicious. She could feel it in the way he looked at her now, like he was studying her, like he was waiting for her to make a mistake. So she had to act fast. This time, she wouldn't use poison. Poison was too unpredictable, too easy to trace. No, this time she would make it look like an accident. Marcus had a doctor's appointment coming up. He went every 2 weeks for checkups, blood tests, medication adjustments. And every time, he was driven in his personal car, a black Bentley with tinted windows and leather seats. Olivia knew the routine. The driver would pull the car out of the garage, help Marcus into the back seat, and drive him to the medical center. Simple. Predictable. And predictable meant vulnerable. One night, while everyone was asleep, Olivia crept into the garage with a small toolkit she'd bought from a mechanic. She opened the hood of the Bentley and located the brake lines. It took her almost an hour, but she managed to cut them just enough so that they would fail after a few minutes of driving. By the time the car reached the main road, the brakes would be useless. And when the driver tried to stop at a traffic light or avoid another car, the Bentley would just keep going. Straight into traffic, straight into a crash. And this time, there would be no mistakes. No Charlotte drinking poisoned tea. No last-minute changes. Just a tragic accident. A sick old man dying in a car crash. Nobody would question it. Olivia wiped the sweat from her forehead, closed the hood of the Bentley, and slipped back into the house. Her hands were shaking, but her heart was calm. She'd done it. And this time, nothing would go wrong. But what Olivia didn't know was that Marcus had installed new cameras, hidden ones. Cameras she didn't know about. Cameras that captured everything. The next morning, Marcus reviewed the footage with his assistant. And there it was, clear as day. Olivia, sneaking into the garage. Olivia, opening the hood. Olivia, cutting the brake lines. Marcus felt something break inside him. Not sadness. Not anger. Just emptiness. His own daughter. His own blood. Trying to end his life not once, but twice. He nodded slowly and said to his assistant, "I know what to do." That afternoon, Marcus called Olivia into his study. She came in smiling, trying to look innocent, trying to act like everything was normal. "Olivia, sit down," Marcus said, his voice calm. "I want to talk to you about something important." Racing just a little. "What is it, father?" "I've been thinking about my will," Marcus said, leaning back in his wheelchair. "And I realized something. As my first daughter, you deserve to know what's in it. You deserve to know what you'll inherit when I'm gone." Olivia's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yes. But not here. I want to show you everything properly. So I'm going to take you to my solicitor's office today. Right now." Olivia hesitated. "Today?" "Yes." "Why? Do you have somewhere else to be?" "No. No, I wasn't expecting this." "Well, life is unpredictable," Marcus said with a small smile. "Come. Let's go. The car is already waiting." Olivia's stomach twisted. The car. The Bentley. The one she'd sabotaged last night. But her father didn't know that. He couldn't know that. So she had to play along. She had to act normal. They walked out to the garage together. The driver was already standing by the car, the engine running. Marcus's assistant helped him into the back seat. Then Marcus looked at Olivia. "Get in." Olivia froze. I'll follow in another car. I don't want to crowd you." "Nonsense. There's plenty of space. Get in." Olivia's heart was pounding so loud she thought everyone could hear it. She knew what would happen if she got in that car. The brakes were cut. Once they started driving and tried to stop, the car wouldn't respond. They would crash into something. Another car, a wall. And she would die along with her father. She stood there, staring at the open car door, her mind racing. If she refused, he would know something was wrong. But if she got in, she would die. Finally, with shaking hands, she climbed into the car and sat next to her father. The driver closed the door and got into the front seat. He started slowly pulling out of the garage. Olivia's hands were gripping the seat so tight her knuckles turned white. Her breath was shallow. Every meter the car moved forward felt like death creeping closer. The moment the driver needed to brake, for the gate, for another car, for anything, they would be done. The car wouldn't stop. It would just keep rolling forward until they crashed. The car was now approaching the main gate. The security guard was opening it slowly. The driver would need to stop and wait for it to fully open. That was when the brakes would fail. That was when they would know. And then Olivia couldn't take it anymore. "Stop the car!" she screamed, her voice breaking. "Stop it right now." The driver, confused, pressed the brake pedal. Nothing happened. The car kept rolling forward. He pressed harder, pumping the brakes. Still nothing. "The brakes!" the driver shouted. "The brakes aren't working." Panic filled the car. The assistant grabbed the steering wheel from the back, helping the driver swerve to avoid hitting the gate. The car rolled onto the grass and finally came to a stop when it hit a small hedge. Olivia threw the door open before the car even fully stopped and stumbled out, gasping for air, her whole body shaking. I'm not feeling well." I can't go. I'm sorry. And she ran back into the house, away from the car, away from her father. Marcus sat there in the back seat, watching her run. His face was calm, cold. He had the confirmation he needed. She knew the brakes were cut because she was the one who cut them. Olivia sat, her heart. That evening, Marcus called for a final family meeting. Catherine, Olivia, Emma, and Amelia all gathered in the living room, confused and nervous. This time, Jonathan Thornton was there too, and 2 police officers standing by the door. Marcus rolled his wheelchair to the center of the room and looked at each of them one last time. I'm done, he said simply. Done with the lies. Done with the betrayal. Done with pretending this is still a family. He nodded to his assistant, who turned on a large television screen mounted on the wall. And then the footage played. First, the video of Olivia sneaking into the security room and deleting files. Then the video of her in the kitchen, pouring something into a teacup. Then the video of her in the garage, cutting the brake lines of his car. Olivia's face went pale. Catherine's mouth fell open. Emma and Amelia just stared in shock. Olivia, Marcus said, his voice cold and final. You tried to end my life twice. And because of you, your sister Charlotte is dead. Father, Don't speak, Marcus interrupted. I don't want to hear your excuses. He turned to the police officers. Arrest her. The officers moved forward. Olivia screamed, tried to run, but they grabbed her arms and handcuffed her. She was crying now, begging, pleading. Father, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Kenneth made me do it. Please. But Marcus didn't look at her. He just watched as they dragged her out of the house. Then he turned to Catherine. He pulled out his phone and showed her the tracking app. I know you went to Michigan to harm Elena. I know everything you've done. You're not my wife anymore. You're my enemy. Catherine didn't flinch. She just stared at him with cold, dead eyes. You, Amelia, and Emma, get out of my house. Now. You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave. If you're still here after that, I'll call the police on you too. You can't do this, Catherine shouted. This is my house. I built this family. No, Marcus said quietly. You destroyed it. Now leave. For the first time in years, Catherine had nothing to say. She just stood there, shaking with rage, before finally turning and walking away. Amelia and Emma followed her, their faces pale and stunned. Within the hour, they were gone. The mansion was finally quiet. And then Marcus made one last call. Bring her home. 2 days later, a car pulled up to the mansion. The door opened, and Elena stepped out, holding baby Samuel in her arms. She stood there for a moment, staring at the huge house that had almost destroyed her. The house where she'd been hunted, threatened, plotted against. The house she never thought she'd see again. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were trembling. But then the front door opened, and Marcus rolled out in his wheelchair. And when their eyes met, all the fear melted away. Elena walked slowly toward him, tears already streaming down her face. She couldn't speak, couldn't find the words. All she could do was hold Samuel out to him. Marcus reached for his son with shaking hands. When he held the baby for the first time, really held him, not through pictures or messages or updates from a guard, but in his own arms, something inside him broke open. Tears poured down his face. He didn't try to stop them. Didn't try to hide them. Samuel, he whispered, his voice cracking. My son. My Samuel. The baby looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. He didn't know about the war that had been fought to keep him alive. Didn't know about the sisters who died, the mother who hunted him, the lies and betrayal and poison. He was just a baby. Pure. Innocent. Perfect. Marcus kissed his forehead and held him close to his chest. You're safe now, he whispered. I promise you. You're safe. Elena stood there watching them, her hand covering her mouth, trying not to sob out loud. After everything they'd been through, after all the running and hiding and fear, it was finally over. They were finally together. Finally home. The mansion, which had felt like a tomb for so long, suddenly felt different. Lighter. Quieter in a peaceful way, not in a tense way. The staff who remained were smiling. The air didn't feel heavy anymore. For the first time in a very long time, the Thornton mansion felt like a home again. Marcus looked up at Elena and said, "Welcome home." And Elena, holding back tears, nodded. "Thank you, sir. Thank you for everything." But outside those gates, in different parts of London, 3 women sat in anger. Catherine, Emma, and Amelia, banished, humiliated, stripped of their power. And in a prison cell not far away, Olivia sat alone, her hands still shaking from everything she'd done. This wasn't over. Not for them. Not yet. Because revenge doesn't die easily. And women like Catherine don't just disappear into the shadows and give up. They regroup. They plan. They wait. Catherine sat in a luxury hotel suite, staring at the city lights. She'd lost the mansion, lost her position, lost everything she'd worked for. But she still had money. Hidden accounts Marcus didn't know about. Offshore investments. Cash she'd been stashing away for years. And she still had rage. Emma sat across from her, scrolling through her phone. Her social media empire was still thriving. Brands still wanted to work with her. She'd lost the mansion, but she'd gained something else, fame. "We can't just let this go," Amelia said, pacing the room. "He threw us out like we were nothing. Like we didn't build that family alongside him." "I know," Catherine said calmly. "And we won't let it go. So what do we do?" Emma asked, looking up from her phone. Catherine turned to face them, her eyes cold and calculating. "We wait. We watch. And when the time is right, we strike. Not at Marcus. He's dying anyway. We go after what he loves most." "Elena," Amelia said. "And the boy," Catherine added. "Samuel. If we can't have the Thornton legacy, then neither will he." Emma shifted uncomfortably. "You're talking about hurting a baby?" "I'm talking about taking back what's ours," Catherine said sharply. "That child is the reason we lost everything. Marcus changed his entire will because of him. So yes, if necessary, we remove him from the equation." Amelia nodded slowly. "How?" "We need information first," Catherine said. "We need to know their routine. Who protects them when they're vulnerable. And we need allies." "What kind of allies?" Emma asked. Catherine smiled coldly. "The kind Marcus fired when he cleaned house. The staff he let go. The business partners he betrayed over the years. There are plenty of people who hate Marcus Thornton. We just need to find them." Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Elena was settling into her new life. It felt surreal, walking through the halls where she'd once worked as a housekeeper, now living as the mother of Marcus's son. Some of the remaining staff were kind. Others kept their distance, unsure how to treat her. But Elena didn't care. All that mattered was keeping Samuel safe. Marcus's health was declining rapidly. The stress of everything, the deaths, the betrayal, the confrontation, had taken its toll. He could barely get out of bed most days. But every evening, without fail, he asked to see Samuel. Elena would bring the baby to his room, and Marcus would hold him, talk to him, tell him stories about the family legacy, about what he wanted Samuel to become. "You're going to be better than all of us," Marcus whispered one night, his voice weak. "You're going to build something good. Something honest. Promise me you'll be better." Samuel, of course, just cooed and grabbed at Marcus's finger. Elena watched from the doorway, her heart breaking. She knew Marcus didn't have much time left. "You should rest," she said softly. "I will," Marcus said. "But not yet. Not until I know you're both protected." "We are protected," Elena assured him. "You made sure of that." Marcus shook his head. "Catherine won't stop. She'll come back. Maybe not today, maybe not this month, but she'll come back. And when she does, you need to be ready. What should I do? Trust Jonathan, Marcus said. My brother. He'll help you. He'll make sure Samuel gets everything I've left for him. And Elena, don't let them intimidate you. You belong here. Samuel belongs here. This is his home. Elena nodded, tears streaming down her face. A few weeks later, Marcus's condition worsened dramatically. The doctors said it was a matter of days, maybe hours. Jonathan moved into the mansion to help manage everything. He brought in additional security, reviewed Marcus's legal documents, and prepared for what was coming. One evening, as Elena sat by Marcus's bedside with Samuel in her arms, Marcus opened his eyes one last time. Thank you, he whispered, looking at Elena. For giving me a son. For giving me hope. For reminding me what love is supposed to be. Elena squeezed his hand. Thank you for saving us. Marcus smiled weakly. Protect him. Promise me. I promise. Marcus looked at Samuel one last time, then closed his eyes. And he didn't open them again. The funeral was small. Just Elena, Samuel, Jonathan, and a few trusted staff members. No Catherine. No Emma. No Amelia. They weren't invited. But across the city, in that hotel suite, Catherine watched the news coverage of Marcus Thornton's death. And she smiled. Now, she said to her daughters. Now we make our move. 3 months after Marcus's death, Elena thought life was finally stabilizing. The will had been read. Jonathan had made sure everything was airtight. Samuel would inherit the Thornton business empire when he turned 25. Until then, Elena would manage his interests with Jonathan as trustee. Catherine, Olivia, Emma, and Amelia received nothing. Marcus had made sure of that. Olivia was still in prison, awaiting trial for attempted murder. And Catherine? She'd gone quiet. Too quiet. Elena should have known better. One afternoon, Elena took Samuel to the park with his nanny and 2 security guards. It was a beautiful day, and she wanted Samuel to get some fresh air. They found a quiet spot near the pond. Elena sat on a bench while the nanny played with Samuel on a blanket nearby. The security guards stood a respectful distance away, watching. Everything seemed normal. Until it wasn't. A woman approached, middle-aged, well-dressed, smiling warmly. What a beautiful baby, she said to Elena. How old is he? 3 months, Elena said politely but cautiously. May I? The woman asked, gesturing toward Samuel. I'm sorry, but no, Elena said firmly. The woman's smile didn't waver. Of course. I understand. You can never be too careful these days. She walked away. But something about the interaction felt wrong. Elena looked around the park more carefully. There were too many people. Too many unfamiliar faces. And they were all watching. We need to leave, Elena said suddenly, standing up. Now. The nanny quickly gathered Samuel and his things. The security guards moved closer. But as they started walking toward the car, 3 men blocked their path. Mrs. Thornton, one of them said. Come with us. Don't make a scene. I'm not going anywhere with you, Elena said, her voice steady despite her fear. The security guards stepped forward. Back off. Now. But there were more men approaching from behind. 6 in total. All armed. Elena's heart raced. She held Samuel close to her chest. This was it. Catherine had found them. Just as the men moved closer, a black SUV screeched to a halt beside them. The door flew open, and Jonathan jumped out with 4 additional security personnel. Get in, Jonathan shouted. Elena didn't hesitate. She ran to the SUV with the nanny and Samuel, diving into the back seat. The security team formed a barrier as the SUV sped away. Behind them, Catherine's men didn't pursue. They just watched as the vehicle disappeared. Back at the mansion, Jonathan paced the living room furiously. I knew this would happen, he said. I told you Catherine wouldn't stop. What do we do? Elena asked, her voice shaking as she held Samuel. We go to the authorities, Jonathan said. We have evidence she's hired people to harm you. We can get a restraining order, maybe even have her arrested. That won't stop her, Elena said. You said it yourself. She won't stop. Jonathan was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone. Then we give her what she wants. What? Not really, Jonathan clarified. But we make her think she's won. We set a trap. Over the next week, Jonathan leaked false information through contacts he knew would reach Catherine. The information? That Elena was planning to leave the country with Samuel. She'd be traveling through a private airport outside London, with minimal security, in 3 days. Catherine took the bait. She mobilized everything she had, hired more men, planned the interception, prepared to take Samuel and disappear. What she didn't know was that the police were waiting. When Catherine and her team arrived at the private airport, they found Elena's car parked on the tarmac. They approached carefully, weapons drawn. But when they opened the car doors, they found it empty. And then the lights came on. Police vehicles surrounded them from every direction. Catherine Thornton, you're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, and solicitation of violence. Catherine stood there, handcuffed, her face twisted with rage as she was led away. Emma and Amelia, who'd been waiting in a separate vehicle, were arrested too. The Thornton women, once so powerful, so untouchable, were finally facing justice. 6 months later, the trials concluded. Olivia received 15 years for manslaughter and attempted murder. Catherine received 12 years for her crimes. Emma and Amelia received lighter sentences, 3 years each, as they'd cooperated with authorities. At the Thornton mansion, life was peaceful for the first time in years. Elena stood in the nursery, watching Samuel sleep. He was almost a year old now, healthy and happy, unaware of the battles fought to keep him safe. Jonathan appeared in the doorway. The trust is fully established, he said. Samuel's future is secure. The business is thriving. You've done well, Elena. We did well, Elena corrected. I couldn't have done this without you. Jonathan nodded. Marcus would be proud of both of you. Elena looked down at Samuel, tears in her eyes. I hope so, she whispered. I really hope so. Outside, the sun was setting over London. The city was vast, full of stories. Stories of love and betrayal, of families torn apart and rebuilt, of justice delayed but not denied. And in that mansion, a young boy slept peacefully, unaware that he carried the weight of a legacy built on sacrifice. His mother stood guard, ready to protect him from whatever came next. Because she'd learned something Marcus had known all along. Family isn't about blood. It's about who fights for you when the world tries to tear you down. And Elena would fight for Samuel until her last breath. And that's the end. What did you think of this epic story? Did Elena and Samuel get the justice they deserved? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this 10-chapter series, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share this video with everyone you know. I have more incredible stories coming soon, so turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thank you so much for watching this entire series. Your support means everything. Until next time, stay blessed and stay tuned. Don't forget, drop your thoughts in the comments. And tell me which party of country you are watching from. Thanks.